Welcome to the OC Bitches, Season 4, Episode 8. Earth Girls Are Easy. Hi, Rachel. How you doing today?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm chewing a triple ginger pretzel from Trader Joe's. It is so good.
Uh-oh.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You got to get your nutrients in somehow, right?
Sure. Super, super healthy.
So, guys, we have Norman Buckley back. If you were listening a few episodes ago, he offered up to come back, and we will always have him because I guess this would probably be your last episode with us. You think? Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. I did one more episode in the fourth season, but that was my least favorite episode. So,
Well,
tell us what
I'm happy to talk about this one, but
tell us what you just told us since you won't be back when we do the finale.
Well, I actually told you this in the very first episode that I did with you guys.
Oh, okay.
But I directed both of you out of the series finale. I did your last scenes because they brought me in to do second unit for Ian Toyton. Ian Toyton directed the episode. He was my mentor. He taught me a great deal, but he brought me in to do second unit. And because there was so much stuff to shoot for the series finale, and I directed both of your last scenes on the series.
Aww.
So, and neither one of you remember that, which hurts my feelings. But
well,
such as it is.
Sometimes the memories are jogged when I'm watching it.
Sometimes memories kind of mush into each other because it's so interesting how much I don't remember. And then you guys will talk about something, or I'll hear something from somebody else, and I'll go like, "Oh yeah, that happened." So there is a lot of information that gets ejected from the hard drives inside our heads when it's no longer useful. But for me, that was a big deal. For me, that was a huge thing to be a part of the series finale and to actually direct certain. I directed you and Willa out of the show, Mindy, and I directed you and Adam out of the show, Rachel, and I directed Peter and Kelly out of the show.
Oh, wow.
I did their last scene.
That's a big deal. Yeah. I remember, Norman,
Yeah.
I remember when Brody rapped, and I talked to Brody about this, and he made a comment to the crew when he rapped. So I'm assuming that would have been the scene you directed. Were we on stage?
Yes, it was on stage, and he was like, "Yep, I'm out of here. Bye." And
he was like, "Well, it's been lucrative." It's okay. I called him out about it. It's fine. Yeah. But I did call him out because I was like, dude, those were your parting words.
At least he was honest in his feelings.
He did not stop for any big emotional send off. That's true. That is one thing I remember too. It was was abrupt, and it was like, okay, I guess we're done.
I do have to admit, I did a series that I kind of felt the same way about when I did Nikita. Just because it was a completely different experience than the OC, which was, I've got my daughter and I can go home to my daughter. And when I was doing Nikita, it was in Toronto and I was flying back and forth. And it was rough, just physically and mentally and everything. And when it was done, I was like, thank you so much. Man, these 5 years have been intense. And somebody said, it's not been 5 years. It's been like 3. It's like, oh, okay. I thought it was 5 seasons and it was really only 4 seasons that amounted to about 3 years. So I was like, I'm ready to get back. But
reality check.
Well, I think it's interesting. It's interesting the way that memory works too. And or just, the way that we think about experiences. Somebody may be having a really important experience for themselves that's not necessarily as important to other people. Mm-hmm. And even what I remember about these episodes, what I remember before the episodes, and then I go back and look at the episode later and I go like, oh, wow. Like there was a lot about this particular episode that I didn't remember. I remember the stuff that we shot in the desert with the bathroom and the alien. And I remember being so pleased with all of that in my mind, this was like one of my favorite episodes. But on rewatching it, I was kind of like, oh yeah, I really loved that part of the episode, but I'd forgotten all about certain other aspects of the episode that I look at and I go, huh, that's interesting.
Right. Our memories are very interesting, like what we carry with us. And, a lot of times our memories when it comes to a show like this, did I remember the actual moment, or is it because I watched the show a number of times after that the memory is actually of watching it? So I definitely have moments in this particular episode. There are moments where I'm like, I remember that day specifically. And it's usually because of what I was wearing, because I liked it or something, but not necessarily, I don't necessarily remember all the storylines and what was happening.
I totally forgot that Kevin Sorbo was in this episode. I totally forgot that. I totally forgot that I was the one who directed his debut into the OC. I totally forgot. And then I was thinking back on the casting session because I just forgot all of that. So it's interesting.
Patrick Rush made a comment when he was on about it too. He's so funny. Anyway.
Well, Patrick Rush is the one who was pushing that forward, and it's it's just interesting.
I think he was, and we can get into it more when we get into it, but I think it was really interesting casting, and it was not what I expected, and I just think it worked, though. Aside from
I would have given him a haircut, but
not Hercules anymore, right?
That's Hercules. I kept going Fabio in my head, and I know he's not Fabio, but I'm like, he's something.
Dude, that reminds me of something. Have I said this on the podcast? I got a call from a casting director once who knew me and said, Melinda, we're testing Fabio and we need an actor to do this test for us. I wasn't in the pilot. They just needed an actor to do this scene with him. And I found the tape, you guys, of me doing this pilot. It's just like, home video of trying to get, doing this pilot. Well, somehow, I don't know why he had my number, but he would call me and I would see him driving around in a little red Miata and his head was taller than the windshield. And I remember specifically driving down La Brea once and seeing him at the light at Sunset in La Brea with his head popped over the windshield and going through the light. I'm like, and I ducked as I was driving because I didn't want him to see me because he was kind of pursuing me a little bit. But anyway, side note, digress. You said,
well, I think we should see that tape. I think you should share that tape.
I do have it.
That's something that should be on the podcast.
Yes. But I had worked with.
I think it's only right that you share it.
Yeah, I knew Kevin Sorbo actually because when I did Xena back in '96, he was doing Hercules, and we had spent, the whole crew is, they did those two shows together, and I had spent Thanksgiving with him and the whole crew, and found him quite nice, and he was great to work with. I actually think I have his number in my phone.
He was very easy to work with. Yeah. I remember him being a real professional and being very easy to work with, and in the scenes that we did together, it was a pleasant experience.
Yes. So. Very much so.
Well, anyway, first of all, Earth Girls are easy. Why don't, Mindy, you read the synopsis for what this episode is, and then we will go there, because I also have questions about the Kevin Sorbo of it all.
Okay, yes. It's New Year's Eve. Seth, Summer, Taylor, and Ryan head to Vegas, where they encounter aliens, pregnancy tests, and a potential marriage proposal. Meanwhile, Bullit introduces a new accountant, Frank, who might blow up Julie's new endeavors at New Match. Written by Mark Fish, directed by Norman Buckley. Original air date is December 28th, 2006. Yeah, that would be New Year's. So let's get into this.
I want to point out that the first podcast I did with you guys was about the New Year's Eve episode in the first season. And the last podcast I'm doing with you is the New Year's Eve episode in the fourth season. So Aww. I found some interesting symmetry in that.
And it feels like a different show from then to now, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
Right?
It certainly does.
So keeping with the, the new fun and energy of season 4, we have this unique opening that, like what the hell is going on at the gas station? And here's the girls are in the bathroom waiting for a pregnancy test. And there's so much information that just grabs the audience. So tell us about this opening and, how that came about.
Well, it was scripted this way, that it began with a scene in the bathroom. And I want to give a shout out to the editor, who was Jeff Granzo, because he came up with idea to run everything in reverse to get back to the 7 hours before. As I remember, it was just scripted that you see these scenes and then it just cuts to 7 hours before. But he found that piece of music and came up with that, and I don't remember the specifics of how we did it, but I just know that he came up with the idea of running everything that had happened up to that point in the story in reverse, which I thought was a very effective way to tell stories. So we did things in season 4 that were quite different stylistically from anything we'd done before. And I really enjoyed seeing that again. I'd totally forgotten about it. I thought it was a wonderful beginning to the show. I remember Buzz Feichens shot it, and he proposed the idea of coming up over the top of the bathroom stall for the beginning, which I really love. I just like to give shout outs to my collaborators who propose certain things, because I think the idea oftentimes is that a director comes in and decides every single thing, and that's just not the case. You know, a director is bouncing his ideas off of other people, and I had wonderful collaborators both on the editorial side and the production design side. I don't know that we've talked about Cece DiStefano, who was the production designer in season 4, and she came up with a lot of those wonderful new sets. And I just found season 4 to be an exciting time for me as a director, because I was basically just absorbing all of these ideas from different people who really helped me. And I think stylistically, this is one of the most interesting episodes that I directed. I always say that, you know, a well-directed episode is if you can turn down the sound and track all of the various beats of what's happening. And I think this episode, probably more than any other, that's the case. You know, this would be a really fun episode to watch just for its visuals alone, because I love the transitions from the rave in the desert to the New Year's Eve party. I thought every single transition really worked back and forth. The music changes. A lot of that was Jeff Granzo. So, you know, shout out to all those people for all of their wonderful support to me.
You make a great point that when you've got a group of people that have been working closely together every single day, 10 months out of the year, if not more, because we were doing so many episodes, that you have such a relationship with the DP and the production design, and everybody puts, you know, if you can imagine, you're on set at the beginning of the day and you've scouted this location, but you're showing all the, you know, everyone like what the scene is going to be. And you have to be agreeable and not, you know, disagreeable, obviously. I mean, there were so many little details. Like I noticed, like, who chose to have a piece of tissue in the toilet, you know? Because I was like, ew, right? One that's just a floater there.
Oh God.
I do remember that was to make it feel like it was a really seedy toilet. And I also love somebody scratched in the idea the graffiti on the wall of the stall said, "Watch out for UFOs."
Right.
That wasn't something I asked for. That was something that someone thought, it's an episode about aliens. Let's throw in "Watch out for UFOs" on the toilet stall to make it feel like it was a seedy toilet.
Right.
But I don't remember exactly why we put the toilet tissue in there. But I think it was to make it feel that way, to make it feel like, ooh, you know. I love the idea that you took the toilet seat cover before you sat down on it. You know, that you pulled that out. Before you sat down on the toilet. I just love that detail. And I don't remember how we came up with some of these things, but I just remember everybody was operating on all cylinders that day.
Right.
Did you know that typical children's vitamins are filled with 2 teaspoons of sugar, unhealthy chemicals, and other gummy junk? It's basically giving your kids candy every morning. That's why Hiya was created. It is made with 0 sugar and 0 gummy junk, yet it tastes great and is perfect for picky eaters. Now, I feel so good giving my daughter these vitamins. Of course, she tried the others, but learning that basically it was just candy first thing in the morning, I am so grateful for Haya.
Haya is non-GMO, vegan, dairy-free, allergy-free, gelatin-free, nut-free, and everything else you can imagine. It's formulated with the help of nutritional experts, and it's pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies, then supercharged with 15 essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin D, B12, and many others to help support immunity, energy, brain function, mood, concentration, teeth, bones, and more.
Haya is designed for kids of all ages and sent straight to your door so parents have one less thing to worry about. We've worked out a special deal with Haya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. To claim this deal, you must go to hayahealth.com/OC. This deal is not available on their regular website.
Go to HIYAHEALTH.com/OC and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Who knew that a better pillowcase is all you need for better sleep? Let's talk about practicing self-care while you sleep. Okay, that's why I absolutely love my Blissy, award-winning 100% mulberry silk pillowcases. I am so picky about how I sleep. Everything needs to be cool, and that includes what covers my pillow. So with Blissy, you know what? I had no idea what I was missing.
Seriously, silk is what's best for your hair and skin. It reduces frizz, tangles, and prevents breakage. That's because it keeps the moisture in your hair and keeps your skincare products and natural moisture on your skin while cotton literally absorbs it off of your face. You can say goodbye to wrinkles, dry, flaky, and red skin in the morning and wake up with healthier and shinier hair that won't take you an hour to fix. Now, my daughter doesn't have tangles in the morning, which would take me a half hour to comb out before Blissy's.
Blissy silk pillowcases are the best ones on the market. They have a ton of different prints and colors, and they make great gifts because there's an option for literally anyone. Men love them too. They have over 1.5 million raving fans, and you could be next.
Try now risk-free for 60 nights at blissy.com/theOC and get an additional 30% off. That's BLISSY.com/theOC and use code TheOC to get an additional 30% off. You'll wake up feeling better than ever. I remember that location. I had, my memory's always just we never know. It's a crapshoot. But I remember being out in the desert. But what I realized is the scenes I remember the most are scenes that we have when we had like an on-set photographer taking pictures. Because over the years, I've seen the pictures. And there's like a picture, a behind-the-scenes shot of like me sitting, I think on Adam's lap, like in between takes or something at that desert location. And so it instantly like takes me there, just like later in the episode with pancakes on the bed and that top I'm wearing. It's because there's like these pictures that exist on the internet. And so I instantly remember that. But where was the desert? Where were we shooting exactly? Do you remember?
So it was up by Lancaster. It's basically a movie set. You see it in a lot of commercials. You see it in a lot of films. It's not an operating filling station or diner. It's a set that somebody built, and a lot of people use it. And we used it for the exteriors. The interior of the bathroom was built back on the stage. The rave venue, or the interior of the rave, was on stage. The exteriors of the rave were at a abandoned airport in Hawthorne, so just a couple of miles from the studio. So this was an episode. I feel very proud of it in the sense that I had a very clear vision of what each one of these sections needed to be. And I had it worked out in my mind how the exteriors would connect to the interiors so that it all feels rather seamless. And I'm very proud of that part of it. And I think this is an example of where my editing training really helps me as a director, because there was no actual complete location. It wasn't like the bathroom was there in the desert. We only did the exteriors there. The interior of the rave wasn't connected to the exterior of the rave. So I had to know in my mind how those things went together and how it would feel seeing people move from space to space. And I feel really good about that. When I look back on it, I'm like, yeah, it works, Totally bought that bathroom was in the desert. Totally bought that that rave venue was all of a piece.
So let's cut to 7 hours earlier, and we see Ryan and Seth talking about their last coffee of '06 and what they're doing for, New Year's. Of course, you're cutting between Seth and Summer, Summer and Taylor and Ryan and Seth, and they're both thinking like, is Vegas going to be cheesy? Is my lingerie going to be cheesy? And I just think it's really sweet. This relationship between Taylor and Ryan is so different than Ryan and Marissa, because that was like sweet, innocent, almost, high school kids with vulnerability. And these guys are just operating on a slightly different, I think Ryan is excited to be with, quote, peaches, because Taylor is like sexually a little more mature and adventurous, and they're on the same wavelength. Like, let's go to Vegas and have a hot night. But in the meantime, Seth is kind of with I love this scene between Seth and Rachel. Well, Rachel with Summer. What is it? What does his shirt say? That's just awful. It's like the worst gift ever. Jamaican me crazy.
Jamaican me crazy. And then she's like, Jamaica. And she like throws it back at him later, which I really liked.
Because what is it? What does she say? You can't Jamaican that decision or something?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But when did New Year's become such a big like couples holiday? Is it? I mean, I guess I understand the Valentine's, but maybe it was just, is it a big deal for you guys?
I thought it was Valentine's for a second, even though they had said New Year's. I'm like, oh, is it Valentine's Day again? Because she was like, what are our plans tonight and stuff?
I think lots of people want to have everybody wants to have a big New Year's Eve. I mean,
well, it's an excuse to party and go crazy, I think. When you get a little bit older, you're like, I'm happy to be in bed. Because I used to
rarely
make it a big
midnight.
Yeah. Well, once you have the kids and stuff.
Well, I went to Austin for New Year's and sat above a party and looked down at the party. That's the way that I spent my last New Year's Eve. But I did not participate in the party. I just watched it from a hotel balcony. Back to what you were saying, though, about Taylor and Ryan being together. I do feel like, as I said on the last podcast, she brings his energy up. It's more comic. It's got a screwball comedy feeling to it. And she's very good with this kind of dialogue that on the page, you would look at it and go like, oh, is that going to work? Making these jokes back and forth about this lingerie. And one of the things about Autumn Research is she can really sell that stuff. And I thought that she was great in this episode.
Yeah, she can sell everything. Even the whole explanation of, she's like, Summer, you're pregnant. And like her whole exposition like backstory was like, well, you had your period when I was da 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 da. And like she's given all of these things and she always just knocks it out of the park.
I was thinking about that, because as the audience is going along with the episode and she picks up the Tampax box and she looks at her notes, obviously the audience thinks, oh, wow, is it about Taylor? But when she says Summer, now it's so plausible that it's Taylor. Anybody else, I never paid attention to my friends' cycles, but it's so plausible that someone like Taylor would be that person. And when they end up in the car together after Seth, of course, hijacks this because he's screwed up and Sandy's like, you got to make this gesture and make it personal. And his version of that is to hijack Ryan and Taylor. But when you guys are in the car scene, it is so funny and it was so entertaining. And my favorite moment is when we're talking about Taylor and Autumn Reeser, when she leans over and she goes, Summer, there's something in your hair. And she's playing with your hair. She's like, I think you need to tell Seth. And it's just, I don't know. I have so much joy in this season that as I'm watching, there's not any of the frustration that I had last season. I just am so enjoying it. And that whole car scene was so just entertaining.
Yeah, I like when I take her hand when she covers for me. I thought that was sweet.
Yes.
And the whole car scene was rear screen projection. We did all of that on the stage. So the car was on stage and all of that was footage that we had sent a second unit out to pick up in the desert so that we could get all those various angles in a car. Because as you know, if you're shooting in an actual car with a rig, it's a lot harder to shoot and it's a lot harder to direct if you're having to listen to someone speak to you through a walkie-talkie. So I was glad that we shot this on stage.
Can I
Also,
ask?
the lighting's prettier. The lighting's prettier on everybody.
Right. That's may I ask that has the technology that was 17 years ago now or something, has it changed any? Has it gotten better for something like what you're discussing?
Well, I think rear screen projection certainly has gotten better. Everything is different. It just depends on your schedule.
Mhm.
I just did NCIS Hawaii, and we actually shot with car rigs. But I looked at it on air, and I thought, God, it looks like rear screen projection. It would have just been easier to do that back at the stage.
Wow.
But everybody has their various reasons for doing it the way they do it, which are usually budgetary. So it depends on if you have a space on the stage for the car and the screen and
Can you
and
lock
all
down
of
the
that
street,
stuff.
right? Can you close the street? Do you have the permits, all
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Is it easier for us just to do a rig on the car and then we'll just shoot it? But I hate shooting on a rig if I'm in a separate vehicle because it's just very hard to talk to the actors and try to give notes. But this was all shot on the stage, and I actually thought this scene worked really well. I remember that being a difficult day, though. I don't know if you remember it, Rachel, but it was a difficult day shooting it. It wasn't easy.
I
I'll just
don't
leave it at
remember,
that.
but I believe you.
Come on, tell us. We're at the
I'll
end.
just leave it at that.
No, what?
Okay, both of the boys that day were being really difficult
Yeah.
and just really low energy on the lines, and I was having a hard time
Mm.
on trying to keep the energy up, and autumn was coming in really, uh, at 11. And Rachel, you always gave it as good as you got. The boys were coming in at 4 and 5, and so I was going in a lot, trying to say, "Come on, you guys gotta bring it more. You've got to let me see some degree of the repartee that was needed for that scene." It was not my favorite day of shooting by a long
Funny.
shot.
Well, it is interesting.
But think how much harder it would have been if we'd been doing it on walkie-talkies.
Oh.
Yeah.
If I'd been trying to give those kinds of notes with walkie-talkies. As it was, I was able to go up to the car and talk to each of them privately and just say, "Come on, I need you to bring a little bit more to the scene and help me out here."
I have had that experience once. I did a little movie and I was doing a scene with Huey Lewis of all people, of Huey Lewis in the news. And my take on it was this very underplayed, stoic detective, and Huey was a little bit bigger. And the director came in and screamed at me. He's like, "You need to match him." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, because I was like, well, so I need some energy. I need some this and that, because and it is kind of true that sometimes it's where if somebody's this high and this one's, can make the scene awkward. But for some reason, I thought the whole thing worked. So whatever result you got, it worked out great.
Well, again, I want to, what I feel proudest about from my own working process was that I knew what I needed to cut it together. This was a very editorialized episode because of the fact that we were shooting all of these things in different places. So it was up to me to make sure that every actor's arc was consistent and that nobody was overplaying or underplaying relative to where they were in the story. So I feel very good about that part of it.
I gotta be honest, I love to stretch out my hair wash days as long as possible. And my secret? Living Proof's dry shampoo. Living Proof has 2 options for you. The original dry shampoo, which is my go-to, or their advanced clean dry shampoo that works like a shampoo and a leave-in conditioner together. Both take care of your scalp and leave no white residue behind. It's a miracle in a bottle.
I have my Living Proof dry shampoo with me on standby. For those of you that don't know, Living Proof is powered by MIT Science. It was founded by a team of elite university scientists and hair experts that developed products to solve your toughest hair problems. I had never been a fan of using dry shampoo before Living Proof, but I never knew what I was missing. My hair gets so flat and lifeless in between washes, but now just use a little of that dry shampoo and I'm ready to go.
If you're not sure what products your hair really needs, you can take Living Proof's AI online healthcare quiz, which analyzes your specific hair care needs and styling goals, then uses that to help customize the right hair care routine for you. I took the quiz and I cannot live without the anti-frizz products they have. Seriously, my hair It gets real frizzy. Also, I never liked dry shampoo before Living Proof.
Yeah.
I like to go a week sometimes without washing my hair. Don't tell anybody.
Okay, I won't tell anybody. Visit livingproof.com/theOC and use code TheOC10 to get a free travel-size dry shampoo with your purchase of $45 or more. That's livingproof.com/theOC, code TheOC10 to get a free travel-size dry shampoo with your purchase of $45 or more. livingproof.com/theOC, code TheOC10.
When you're saying about the editorially, like how it was in different locations, even when, they're at the rave and it's outside and they see the alien girl, right, run up the stairs. I assume the interior, which you cut to, was not there again, right? I thought that was...
That's right. That was a set on the stage. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like my favorite with the alien and her
Zorgnog.
Zorgnog. Spell it.
What's my name?
Zerknog.
Spell it.
Z-U...
E.
Oh, Z-E-R-K-N...
Hyphen.
Hyphen N-O-N-G.
And what does that spell?
Zerknog.
Again.
Zerknog.
With a dash.
Yeah. Surdnog. But one of the things that does happen that's kind of important is because Seth did see when he thought, all of a sudden he wanted toothpaste. And so he sees this test and Taylor claims the bag as her own. And then when he overhears Ryan and Taylor talking, and Taylor's all of a sudden saying, yeah, we're not going to get intimate because we need their first time to be special. And then Seth's like, are you sure you haven't had sex with her? Because... So then that cat's out of the bag, right? As the alien comes out, first of all, jumping for great costume and jumping into a really cool car. I mean, do you get to pick the car?
Yes.
Yeah. The imagery.
Yes, we picked a car, and there was a lot of discussion in prep, and this writer wasn't on set with me, so I can't really remember. I didn't have a lot of feedback from the writer on this particular episode. So I think I was pretty much left to my own devices, but I love this idea of just going, let's just take it to the limit. Let's really dress her up as a ridiculous looking alien. And they brought me various types of cars, and I feel like I could be wrong about this, but I've always loved those old Cadillacs with the fins. And I said, I'd really love it to be like an old Cadillac that has fins on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the transportation department brought me pictures of various cars. I felt like that added something to it. It was absurd. So Why not go whole hog on the absurdity? It
feels like Frank Sinatra, old, Vegas feeling, the 50s, 60s
I
or
think
something.
that was one of the... Yeah, well, I think that was one of the inspirations is they're going to Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make it feel like the Vegas that we imagine in our minds. Let's make it Ocean's 11. And I also want to say something about the pregnancy test. This is a funny story. The pregnancy test, the art department came up with a fake brand of pregnancy test. And then the following year, I did an episode of Gossip Girl, and the props department brought me this pregnancy test that just said pregnancy test on it. And I said, well, wait a minute, guys. I said, these are high-end Upper East Side kids. I think they wouldn't buy the generic pregnancy test. They'd buy one that has a product name. And the Gossip Girl prop guys were like, well, we don't want to research a product name. And I said, well, I just did a pregnancy test last season on the OC. So that's a Warner Brothers show. So go ask legal what the name of the pregnancy test is and use that one.
Right.
So I thought that was funny because there's a continuity between pregnancy tests between the OC and Gossip Girl.
It's in the details, man. In the details.
You know what's so funny? Speaking of prop names, it was so funny because one time Hayden was working on a movie and he brought home a pack of cigarettes, and on them they're called Bilson. And I was like, wait a minute, why is my name on a pack of cigarettes? And it turns out that's like a prop guy's last name. And so now it's come up multiple times. I've been on set and there's a pack of cigarettes, which you probably don't see much anymore, and they all had Bilson on them. Huh. It's like I'm a brand of cigarette.
That's the way it happens. That's the way it happens is because they clear these names, and then if somebody calls clearances and says we need a name for a cigarette pack, then they say, oh, well, we've cleared Bilson in the past, so let's use that.
Right.
Or,
Right.
whatever this pregnancy test was called, I can't remember. But I do think it's funny that I directed an episode in the OC and an episode in Gossip Girl that revolved around a pregnancy test.
Who would ever thunk it,
Who
huh?
would have thought it? So our four jump in the Range Rover to follow this alien, slutty alien, as Taylor would call her.
I love that scene. I love that scene. I love that scene. I love that scene where they come running out of the
Yes.
bathroom to chase the alien. And I remember doing that in just a couple of takes. Autumn and Rachel were so good. It's delightful to me still.
I love it.
Aw.
Well, they follow her to I guess it's I think later on there's a little sign that says Area 51, which I don't think is actually supposed to be Area 51, but it's an Area 51 themed party. Or what do you think? Is it? Because you couldn't really have a party in Area 51, right?
I think it was we were just having fun.
Yeah.
I remember saying, like, we should make it Area 51.
Right.
And somebody threw that on there. But yeah, it's not really Area 51. But it is an abandoned hangar that they're supposed to be in. So
Okay.
I did love the idea that it was somewhere out in the desert where weird shit was happening on the base.
It's so plausible, and it looks like an awesome party. And so, of course, the girls are looking for this alien, thinking it'll be easy to find this person. And they go in, and there's hundreds of aliens, so it's not going to be so easy. And when they're looking, Seth has this moment where he's like, "Hey, okay, before when I found out it was actually Taylor's, I wanted to do this before, so give me a paw." And it's just gut-wrenching that he's like, because it's not yours. Could you imagine if we were looking for yours in summer and your delivery was great? And it was like, Seth. And he instantly knows, like, oh shit. And Summer takes off. But my favorite part of this whole this whole episode is this dude comes up and he goes,
Oh my God, it's really you, Seth Cohen. I saw you at Comic-Con years ago.
Oh.
I'm a huge Atomic County fan.
Thanks a lot.
Check it out, man. I'm Kid Chino.
I started laughing out loud and I just was beaming watching it. I thought it was so clever and so detailed, because this is really what it's like to go to these conventions where somebody is like dressing up as this character. And I wouldn't have thought it until he said, I'm Kid Chino, and he makes the pose. It's so awesome. I loved it. The details.
That kid, I don't remember his name, but he was very good. I thought he was very funny.
He was very funny. I mean, we've talked about that neckband and the fact that maybe because people talked about it so much, it was in the script that this kid is dressed up like Chino, and Kid Chino in our wardrobe department made sure that he looked just like him.
Well,
Yeah.
wardrobe in this episode is great.
Yes.
It's great.
They had to outfit
Just
everybody,
Everything
right?
about it was wonderful. Yes. And I think it's spectacular.
I remember the alien girl vividly. And I remember Kid Chino as well, like his face. I remember that guy, but I couldn't, again, tell you. And he was very committed. I have to commend him for that.
Yes. Very good.
But yeah, so the whole party, goes down. The purse, the mystery pregnancy test. What's it going to be? But meanwhile, we should talk about what's going on outside of this party.
We start with Julie on the phone with Spencer, and she's whispering about these. She's like, we can't keep, she's basically explaining that she can't keep doing pizza because everyone's doing pizza, which of course is a throwback to Julie's porno and the pizza guy, right? And because they're spending a lot of money on pizza. And then she says, do you know anything about laundering? And he's like, no, sorry, I don't know. And she's like, I can't keep putting this cash under like pizza. It doesn't make sense. And then we see this like mysterious guy in the background, eavesdropping on Spencer. Like, who is this guy? What's going on? But she hangs up, and then Kirsten is like, Julie, let me do the books. And somehow Julie's like, no. She's like, Kirsten's like, I think I know a little bit better than you. And she's like, no, I got to learn. And then she asks her to go get coffee, which is hysterical. And Bullit comes in, and here's what I'm questioning. He's like, we've had zero this and that, and we've had zero hanky panky, and I was like, Wait, are they dating? What's going on? The last time we saw them, they had they had breakfast at the montage. Like Julie agreed to breakfast, and Gordon, and he admitted, he was like, "You get under my skin, you make me nervous." And I guess, but Julie's, I don't know, he's acting like their girlfriend boyfriend. So I was a little confused. I mean, I think she kind of likes him.
There's stuff in this episode, I have to say, that you'd never get away with now.
Okay.
The very idea of a guy, basically kind of pressuring the woman to have sex, the hanky panky line, the way he swats her on the rear end is,
Yeah.
the way he swats you on the rear end, which, that was not something I directed him to do. So I don't know, maybe it was in the script, but I can't remember. But that kind of stuff, it's funny to look at this because you realize, oh boy, we have changed in terms of what we think is acceptable behavior, even playing it for laughs. And I mean, that guy was so great.
He played into that chauvinistic, I don't know, I guess, Texas oil tycoon. We don't really know where his money comes from. But if you actually look at the scene closely, he doesn't actually smack my ass. He stops just short of actually making contact. And, because Gary and I became friends off screen. So it was, so he was playing into the character, but he didn't quite do it. So I thought it worked though, because he really, it's keeping a very consistent character because he's totally inappropriate.
I think it's interesting because I was asking myself as I was watching, I was like, that wouldn't fly today, but it's funny and it's kind of delightful, like the way that actor played the part. It's just fun. It's just funny. Felt to me like a time capsule.
Right, right. No, he says all the wrong things. He's insulting. He's politically incorrect. He's totally alienates everyone. And for some reason, it's written in a way that he's still delightful. And I think we even in this episode, we grow to like him even more by the end of it, for sure. But okay, so here's the scene that comes up that I actually remember because Julie being stealth, to me, I always remember Julie being stealth, like when she was in the hat and the pigtails and calling Luke and saying, "Luke, this is a booty call." And, she was like, and this time she's got I remember some of the joy that I had from the show was literally the outfits because I didn't dress like that in real life, and it was very James Bond and these big glasses and staring out. And we did that in the parking structure at Raleigh Studios because, that's, of course, the easiest place to go. It was, 100 feet from our studio. But it's so funny because he says he's lost this book. Classic thing. But Julie's like, we got to get out. But then it sounds like they're making a shitload of money, right? 40 grand a piece in one night. So it's a very lucrative thing, right? I suppose. Yeah.
You looked so pretty at the soiree, I'm calling it.
Oh, that was actually
that black dress and your hair. I just thought you looked so pretty.
Oh, thank you. We do things to entertain ourselves. And part of it as a female is to like, what hairstyle are we going to do? What makeup are we going to do? And we did like a green and she loved to do a certain kind of eyeliner, dark eyeliner. And it kind of worked out the way it was shot at the end, the close up of the eyes. And I remember Cindy just going, I love this makeup. I mean, like I said, it's such a collaboration, but thank you, Rachel. Those were the clothes actually make the attitude as well, so it worked out. Yeah. But then, Bullit, meets with Frank. Apparently they're friends. Right. And, he's like, how you doing? What's going on? And you always said if I ever needed a job. And he was like, well, why here? Why Orange County? And somehow he knows about New Match. So we're really like, who is this guy? What's going on?
Well, and I got to say, that's one of those scenes that it makes me laugh. It feels like there are a lot of scenes like this in television where he goes to his hotel room. He comes in. Do they even sit down? I can't remember. But then he immediately walks out again. Everything they say to one another could have been done on the phone.
Yep.
And yet, you as a director, you're kind of like, all right, well, this is the script I've been given. So this person came here to have this conversation. but he literally walks in and then walks right back out again.
Right.
I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, this is so typical of a scene on television where you just feel like, all right, they had to fill out that day and they decided they were going to do that
Yeah.
in a set as opposed to trying to do it as a they run into each other someplace or a telephone call.
Right.
So
Well, he takes off because he says the dress shop, which turns out that, this is the beginning of Caitlin and Bullit are starting this relationship, or they're bonding over Julie, because
It's so sweet, their relationship.
it really is.
their relationship is one of my favorite things from season 4.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think what's
And
interesting.
there's a scene later. There's a scene later in the season. I just want to say now, since I won't be with you, but there's a scene later in the season, and in the other episode I directed this season, where they say goodbye to one another. That's one of my favorite scenes of the series. So I'll just throw that out there now.
Caitlin said, she was supposed to talk to Jimmy, and apparently she can't on New Year's, and Bullit invites her to the party. And she says, and she gives him some good advice, because he told Frank, you can't work there because my girlfriend Julie won't let you. And when Caitlin says, ignore her, just ignore, do whatever you want. And that's when he gives her a wad of cash to get a dress or a lollipop. And Caitlin's like, you really like my mom, right? Because she's definitely becomes Team Bullit. And as they go on. So
Yeah. She misses her dad, and he's filling that place.
yeah.
That void.
But then Bullit introduces Julie to Frank, who's already going through the books, and Julie can't. Her mouth is on the ground, like, oh.
One of my favorite things about this scene is that you hear a toilet flush as Bullit comes back into the room, which
that.
I remember. I remember in the editing room saying, "Let's throw a toilet flush in there and just see if it makes it," because all of these things you never know, because standards and practices will come back and say, no, we can't hear a toilet flush, because they don't want to acknowledge the fact that people
Everybody
use
poops.
the toilet. But that's one of my favorite things about that scene was you hear a toilet flush and he walks back in the room, which I just think is great.
Right. But man, yeah, no, this is like the ramifications of this. Somebody's actually looking at the books, and this isn't fun. He says one little thing where he's like, come on, Julie, taking you out of here. Let's get you out of that pilgrim outfit. And I thought, was it in the script? So wardrobe literally found a bibbed shirt, or did Gary Grubbs just come up with it on the moment in the moment? So anyway,
it feels to me like that was a scripted line, and it feels to me that Customs probably read that
and found something,
brainstormed about it.
Right. That would make so much sense. But Bullit has this New Year's Eve party though that Julie and Spencer are just freaking out about because it's a pretty funny image with all of these. Because I kept thinking, I was like, well, all these women, let's call them all noopsies, or that type of women. If they're all with these guys, wouldn't word of mouth get out, like that they're all paying for, this service? But this is this suspension of disbelief of how things can happen, right? But I guess they're all single. It's not like they're married.
I think it is the suspension of disbelief. And I remember being disappointed that we didn't have more really great background to sell that whole aspect of the story. I remember thinking like, this isn't really reading the way we want it to. So we only had a couple in there that really kind of sold that.
You mean to feature the really good looking hot? Is that what you're saying?
Good looking young men,
older
with very pretty older women. Yeah, I just remember that the background that we had to choose from that day was less than maybe what we wanted, because we didn't really do as many cutaways as I'd hoped. But I will say this is something I really love, is the way that the two parties are very distinguished by the music that's playing.
Yeah,
very much so.
There's a selection from Breakfast at Tiffany's that we use as part of the party music for the adults, and then it cuts to this electronic music for the rave out in the desert.
Yeah, I noticed that the difference between the two parties and intercutting them. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah,
well done.
let's pop back to that rave party, because when clearly, Seth stuck his foot in his mouth and he got interrupted by Chino. In the meantime, Ryan confronts Taylor and says, look, why can't you tell me? I don't care about the other stuff. And essentially she's like, what are you talking about? And he says, I know it's yours, but it turns into this, instead of Taylor saying, no, it's Summer's, don't worry. She, as confident and actually experienced as Taylor is with the world, she still has these, she's very highly reactive to any kind of suggestion that she thinks she's being called a divorcee whore. And I think she says whore like half a dozen times at least. You think I'm a whore? I love the way she says it. But of course, she gets so upset, she runs off and gets drunk, while Seth who comes up and explains what happens. And all she does is focus on the fact that her new boyfriend thinks she's a whore. So she's very reactionary, right?
Yes.
Yes. So
yes,
that's when Summer runs up. She grabs the keys, ditches them. And so the boys end up on their own, and they get that, luckily very stealthily get that purse back. And
yes, while she's
Kid
spelling his name.
What is it again?
Still my favorite bit.
Zorg. What's my name?
Zergnog.
Zergnog.
Yes.
Separately, they head back, and Summer was saying some really, I guess, things that I would agree with. She was like, "How did I go from Brown to being this pregnant dropout?" Right? I would be very sympathetic to that. But then Taylor, of course, turns it around. Life is all about a perspective. She's like, you know what? It's a new year. Anything can happen. It'll be fine. It'll be good. It's not that big of a deal. We'll work it out. In the meantime, the boys get a ride, and and Ryan has some really important things to say. He's like, as scared as you are, just imagine how scared Summer is. I think that's a very valid thing to say. And yeah, so that's going on. Do you remember all of that van stuff or car stuff? That was still all on the set as well, I would imagine, right?
I'm not sure. I feel like that we shot some of the interiors of the van out at the Hawthorne Airport, where we shot the exteriors of the rave venue. But I love the details. I love the idea that you see these various details. You see the purse, you see the pregnancy test, you see the ring, you see the windshield cleaner at the gas station. You see all these things. You see all these details throughout the episode, which I think is really wonderful, because they really help tell the story. And seeing that ring there in the van, as I was rewatching it, I was like, I wonder why we cut to the ring there, and then for that
Me
show up
too.
later. It was wonderful.
I thought that as well.
Yeah.
Like it surprised me when Summer's back in her room and Seth shows up with the bag, and when he proposes, and because he hasn't looked at it, and he in the moment, like he's thinking, what, like this is showing
Right
her
thing to do.
Right. This is the big gesture that Sandy was talking about. Like, it doesn't matter. I want to be with you, whether you're pregnant or not. And it's a really great way to make up for what he did. So the intention is good. And then what happens? She opens up the purse and
she's not pregnant. I did not remember a proposal at all. Did not know this
totally
happened.
Surprising, right?
Yeah. No, I did not remember that this happened in the story.
Right.
And watching it, I was like, oh my God. I had a few mouth drops in this whole episode. That was one of them.
It's a very sweet scene. I think it's a very sweet scene. I really like that scene a lot.
Right.
I thought that it was wonderful, the way that he says, I want to make sure that you know that this is sincere before we look at this test. And then the way that both of you kind of looked like what just happened here after the test is negative. I thought it was wonderful.
She's like,
yeah,
should we celebrate? But it's one of those things where you go into, our whole societies, we're inundated with, the fantasy of getting married and doing all these things that we dream about. And when things happen, you could just feel the moment where it's like, I'm not pregnant. And like, oh God, what did we just do? Right. Like now we're committed to this and all of the other thoughts, like, am I ready for this? So we'll see in the next episode how all this comes about. Right.
Oh, yes. One thing I wanted to just note, one improv that I actually laughed out loud was earlier when they're packing to go to Vegas. They decide to go to Seth and Summer.
Yeah.
And Seth is like, oh no, he's going to help me pack. And he's helping her pack and he takes down a lamp from the closet.
What? I didn't see that.
That's a very Adam thing to do.
Yes.
I remember that too. Yeah.
I laughed out loud. I was like, yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just had to give a shout out. And then the other thing that, of course, at the very end of the episode that my mouth literally drops because I'm watching this show in real time, don't know anything, was we find out. What do we find out at the very end of the episode, guys?
When Mr. Frank shows up at the party and he kind of like very menacingly shows up and says and gives a hotel key to Julie and says, meet me in 30 minutes. And Julie's scared as fuck, right? In the meantime, Sandy bumps into him and is like, his wheels start turning. But yeah, you go in and there's this thing that happens where she's like, I'm not trading sex for whatever this is. I may be a madam, but I'm not a whore. And he's like, that's not what this is. And then you cut back and forth between Sandy searching some records. And right as you see breaking and entering, you see DUI, you see domestic battery, and you see the name Atwood Frank. And then boom, I'm Ryan's father. End of episode. It was really
Mouth drop.
Mouth like it did. So you did not know watching this, Rachel?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Of course not.
Yeah, I thought it was well done.
He had quite a record. He had quite a record for
Right.
somebody who's going to become like an ongoing character in the show. I was like, oh my God, he did a lot of things. He did a lot of bad things. He's a bad man.
If you hear the stories about, if we ever did imagine him, we've seen people from Chino, we've seen people from the Inland Empire on this show, and they're always like trucker hat, ready to rumble type, really hard edge guys. And this guy doesn't present that way. He's like polite and kind of elegant and kind of suave.
Well, he does have that haircut, so there's that.
I think he still does too.
The one thing we skipped over that I just feel like deserves special mention is the dance between Bullit and Caitlin at the end of the New Year's Eve party. I thought that was a very sweet scene where where he teaches her the Texas two-step.
Yeah.
She says
that's what sealed the deal for me, was just seeing that moment between them when I was like, he's stepping in and she misses her dad and that's her little father figure.
Yeah. I thought that was a lovely scene.
Really sweet. But there is one other thing that I thought was an awesome end to this caper that they were on was, when Ryan walks in and Taylor's in bed and he's like, hey, and she's like, she says, get in line with the other 5 guys I'm going to have sex with. And then she goes, because do you still think I'm a whore? And he was like, no, like I never did. And she goes, unless you want me to be. And because like, that's the Taylor. And so it really paid off. Like Taylor, they're back because I think that, I'm team Taylor Ryan. I think they needed it. So that is the episode of Earth Girls Are Crazy, which of course was the 1988 movie with Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. If you're too,
which it was actually Earth Girls Are Easy.
Sorry,
which I actually was an assistant editor on.
What?
I was an assistant editor on that movie. Yep.
No way.
So, very serendipitous. I worked on that movie as an assistant editor. At the end of it, and worked with the director Julian Temple on another movie as well about the Rolling Stones, and so it did feel very serendipitous when I ended up on this episode to direct.
That's awesome.
That is so cool. What a fun little tidbit.
So Norman, we have a little rapid fire for you before you run off.
Okay. No, I never do very well at these, but okay.
Oh, no, this isn't trivia. It's just a yes or no or your preference.
Oh, okay, good. All right.
Yeah, just rapid fire. Just we say it and you just pick the first one that is your pick. Texas two-step or tango?
Texas two-step.
Aliens or zombies?
Aliens.
Orange County or Serenity, South Carolina?
Oh, you guys are like put me in a vice. I'm going to say I'm going to say Serenity, South Carolina, just because that's where I am right now. So I always want to be here now. Be here now.
Aw, that's fair.
Kid Chino or the Ironist?
The Ironist.
Oh, okay. The Ironist.
The Ironist. Nice.
Mm,
Okay.
It's also the one I relate to more.
That'd be really funny if you were like, I really relate to Kid Chino. Surf or turf?
Surf.
I think I know the answer to this one. Editing or directing?
Directing.
Hmm.
Ding, ding, ding. There. Well,
Is that the
Yay.
answer you thought?
I thought,
Is that what you
yes.
thought?
No, we've had many discussions about
Yeah.
it. And you know,
Yeah.
I've always loved the progression of your career and your friendships. So thank you so much. Thank you for coming again.
I really am grateful that I've had the career I've had. I feel like there's a lot of people involved with the OC who are really responsible for that. And so, again, I just want to give a big shout out to Josh and Stephanie and Bob De Laurentiis, the three of them. I feel very grateful to all of them for the career that I've had and what it's become. So thank you very, very much for letting me do that. And thanks for letting me join you guys again, because this has been really fun. It's been so much fun to listen to the podcast and be a part of it. And I really appreciate my friendship with both of you.
Thank you,
Aw.
Norman. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Norman. Thank you so much. It means so much that you have gone on this ride with us.
I've enjoyed it. It's been really, really, it was a special time. It was a special time for me. So
Yeah.
really grateful to be able to revisit it with you.
Well, that being said, everyone, thank you so much for listening. Follow, rate, and review. Welcome to the OC Bitches, wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you like to watch us, please check us out on YouTube. And you can now listen to bonus features as well as season 1 and 2 of the OC Bitches by going to castmedia.com/cast plus. That's cast with a K, media.com/cast plus. Do it. Okay? Bye, bitches.
Welcome to the OC Bitches is brought to you by Cast Media. Executive produced by Colin Thompson, Harris Lane, produced by Katie Curtwright,
Edited by Parker Flores and our technical engineers, Travis Holden and Dustin Park.